Hi and good evening, and welcome to my channel. I'm Dr. Carmen McGuinness, and I want to thank you for joining me in session 1 of A Course in Aspects. A Course in Aspects is an ongoing workshop style course in which we'll explore those aspects of ourselves that make us who we are, but that don't always play well together, sometimes preventing us from reaching our full potential. A full description of the course is available in the comments section below this video. So, to be clear, I present weekly on Sundays, but not every week will be part of this particular course, as I have other content that deserves time as well. So today is the first in A Course in Aspects, and each subsequent Course in Aspects segment will be labeled as such. So now let's get started. So in the way of a brief description, or explanation, I should say, of the origin of the course, I want to share my book, Unintended Consequences, a Psychological Romance. The book is a fictional account of a slice of the life of London McQueen, before, during, and after a bad breakup with her married lover, Carrie Treach. The story explores the aspects of London's personality, which were at odds with one another in dealing with Carrie, and how denying those aspects drove her to the brink of madness, nearly splitting her psyche into multiple personalities. And I say nearly because that's a little teaser for the book, in case you read it. As you can well imagine, each of these aspects of London's personality dealt with her lover in very different ways, nearly driving him mad as well, which he probably deserved. He was a married guy having an affair with London. Now, this is a fiction, and I don't mean to scare anyone by mentioning it and the details, but it is the provenance of this particular course, A Course in Aspects. After I wrote the book and provided interviews, articles, and appearances on the internet, and later started this channel, I began to attract clients who were facing similar challenges to London. And I set up a HIPAA secure internet interface where I can see people like that. So most of these were not involved with married men, though some were, but all of them were either in or trying to get over the loss of a challenging relationship with a difficult person. Some a spouse or a lover, others a best friend, some an employer, an employment situation, co-workers, and some a parent or a parent of theirs or their own child, so family members. In each case, we dealt in therapy with aspects of their personality with which they couldn't come to terms, aspects that may have led them to their freedom had they brought them fully on board. And when I speak here of freedom, I refer to either physical or emotional freedom. So that's the origin of A Course in Aspects. I'll hold up the book one more time, my book, Unintended Consequences, and there is a sequel written later, Retrograde, a Psychological Romance. So it began as a fictional erotic romance novel. It became a large part of my therapeutic practice, and now it's becoming a course. And indeed, it may even find itself going full circle into an academic book. We shall see. But for now, let us focus on you. And please feel free to freeze the video as needed while you work through the exercises. Or you may find it helpful to view it once through, all the way through, listening to my various examples, and then go back through a second time, focusing on yourself and sort of unpacking your own situation. So I want you to think of a time in your life when you had to make a difficult decision. This may be happening right now or in the past. Relate this to the examples I provided earlier, a decision regarding a spouse, a lover, a friend, employer, parent, or your own child, or perhaps something not mentioned here. Now, you may not have thought of this as a decision when it was happening or if it's happening now. Frequently, when we're caught up in a difficult choice, they don't feel like choices at all, but more like we're being buffeted about by circumstances and those involved. We might feel helpless. He's a married man, but he's just married to the wrong woman. My husband or wife, spouse, is an alcoholic. He or she can't help it. They're a victim. My best friend dumped me because she's self-centered, not thinking of my part in whatever problem we encountered. My job is the best job I can find, even though I hate it. My mother was abused as a child. It's not her fault that she treats me the way she does. My ex-husband influences my daughter negatively toward me. I just need to cope with it. In each of these cases, there's a decision to be made. After you've settled on your particular situation, whatever it is, whether it's in any way similar to the examples I gave, or whether it's something entirely different, gently adjust your thinking to embrace the possibility that there's a decision to be made, that you have a choice of some sort in this situation. Even if you don't know what the possible choices are, open your mind and heart to the reality that there is a choice that is in your hands. Some examples using the scenarios we're using here, and of course these situations are all different, so these are just very general examples, but we'll go through some examples. Tell your lover you want a committed relationship, or you'll move on to find someone with whom you can have a committed relationship, versus acknowledge that you love him or her enough to have limited exposure. Second example, tell your spouse that he stops drinking or you divorce, versus acknowledging that you're dependent upon the relationship and willing to spend your life with someone who's emotionally unavailable much of the time. Example 3, make new friends versus staying home alone and blaming your ex-bestie for your miserable social life. Next example, look for another job. Even if it pays less, you can work your way up, versus remaining in a miserable situation 8 hours a day, which probably also affects the rest of your time. Next example, set personal boundaries around your mother. Perhaps tell her your personal rules, like speak nicely to me, versus putting up with it and sending the message that you'll take whatever she dishes out, and establish your own personal tolerance to abuse, because that's what you're doing. You're not just telling her you'll put up with it, you're telling yourself you'll put up with it. Next one, and I think this is the last. Tell your daughter she has to do 5 nice things for you or with you each week in order to earn her car, her phone, her TV, whatever you own that she wants, versus teaching her that you'll roll over while she treats you like dog poop, like her dad did. So, and also, if you use that last one, make her think of at least one of them so that she starts thinking in nice ways instead of playing the victim. Now, step 3 of today's exercise is to explore what aspects of your personality might influence you in one versus the other of these choices, or whatever examples you came up with in your own life. So when you do this, be concise. You don't need to write a discourse on each. Some examples you might come up with include, and these are very concise, desire for happiness, belief that I'm not worthy, despise of liars, strong self-respect, fear of being alone, need for peace in my environment, put off by the smell of alcohol on one's breath, fear of being judged by others, desire to control my destiny. That one's my favorite. These are just a few aspects of personality that you may or may not have selected for yourself. You may or may not have thought of, and I'm sure you came up with others too. And if you thought of some you wish you had, but don't believe you do, then you probably actually do. You almost certainly have the seeds of that aspect, seeds which can be nurtured if you do, as I say, and recognize them, attend to them, say hello to them, share a cup of coffee or a glass of wine with them. And if you thought of some that you hate and you try to push them under the surface, you'll only heighten them in the end. So be careful of that. It's like trying not to think of a lemon. And even as you do, your mouth waters from the sour, lemony taste you're not thinking of, right? Even me right now. Next step is to take a few minutes to consider which of these aspects work well together versus which are at odds with one another. And consider too, consider how them being at odds might hold you back, and how reconciling them might lead you forward. For instance, strong self-respect and fear of being alone. If you nurture fear of being alone more than strong self-respect, it'll win, for sure. If you push it under the surface, it'll bite you in the bottom and win that way. But if you respect both of these aspects of yourself, you might decide to move out, but with a roommate instead of alone. Another example, desire for happiness versus a belief that I'm not worthy. If you can get these two in the same room, sharing that glass of wine that I mentioned, perhaps the desire for happiness can convince the belief that you're not worthy, that we just don't desire those things that we're not worthy of. In fact, we can't even imagine what we're not worthy of. Indeed, if you can imagine it, it comes from inside of you, and it is, therefore, by definition, your own creation, so you must be worthy of it. And here we would be very specific in what we imagine. A home, a relationship, specific aspects of that relationship, whatever it is that would make you happy. So hopefully with these examples in our first segment, you can see the benefits of having the awareness of these aspects in your personality. However, that's not necessarily going to work if you don't need these aspects on a regular basis. If, say, you just need to be really angry for a day, move out and be done with it, then you're going to forget how to be angry, how to conjure up that aspect of yourself. If you don't need to clean house for several months or even years, it'll be unfamiliar to you. Like old friends whose names are in your contact list, but you rarely see them. So it's important to truly take these attributes, these aspects on board, to honor them every day. Maybe a morning salutation, and perhaps share a glass of wine or a cup of coffee from time to time. So that's it for today for our first segment. The next time we get together, we're going to explore some interesting ways to conjure up these aspects, to figure out exactly what they are and make that long laundry list of them. And then later in the course, we'll work on ways to practice with them on a regular basis. So I thank you very much for coming by today, and I will see you in the near future next Sunday with probably a sneak peek midweek. And I wish you a very happy and beautiful Sunday evening. and week. See you soon.